Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is our year to shine. We are following along right now in Christine Arylo's book, Madly in Love with Me. And it's about a daring adventure of becoming your own best friend. Hope you'll check out some of the videos if you haven't started watching this section. It's a perfect book for our February month of love. It's February 2021 if you're watching this real time. And in the last video, we talked about Christine's discussion of the self-love tree. How is your tree doing? You got some dead branches, or are you seeing some of the areas that you haven't given any attention to at all? I like the idea of the fact that there are all these things that are interconnected, but they also have their own little independent component as well. And you know what I realized too, in the background of some of my videos, you may have noticed I have a gold tree. It's on one of my little tables with a lamp on it, and it has 10 branches. So maybe I could do something with that, like put little jewels on it or something, I don't know. So now we're in the section about growing the love. We sort of have figured out what it means, what self-love means for real. And I really like that definition, so go back and watch that if you missed that. And so now Christine's going to break down some of these individual branch words. So tonight's video is going to be about self-awareness and self-honesty. And once again, we have a self-love pulse check. It's a pretty long list for this one. It's on page 71. So I encourage you to see where you stand in terms of this self-awareness and self-honesty. I haven't done my pulse check officially yet in this book, but I would expect my pulse to be pretty good in this one. I do feel like at 45, I have a deep sense of self-awareness, and I don't have an issue with the self-honesty either. And I am somebody that if I don't realize something about myself and you tell me, then usually I will say, yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, but I totally see what you mean. But yeah, this is not one that I necessarily struggle with, which is good, because I'm sure there are other ones that will be like dead and rotted with bugs and stuff when we get to those. So take your self-love pulse and see where you're at with this. Now, when we get into the first couple pages of the section, I love this part. Never thought about it this way. Well, I'll say one thing after I read this, but I've thought about this in a small way, but not in the larger way that she says it. Okay. Think of yourself as a brilliant machine that has many intricacies and idiosyncrasies. Your job is to know how you work, to know your owner's manual inside and out, so that you can see your weaknesses, strengths, blind spots, and zones of brilliance. And as the chief operator of this brilliant machine called you, it is your role to be diligent in discovering how and from where you are operating in all moments. It's your duty to be aware and awake. I had never thought about making a Carolyn owner's manual. That would probably be really, really helpful in my relationships on every level. I feel like I could do that if I had to. But am I great at communicating that? No. So I could create it, but then presenting it to, say, a family member or something and saying, like, this is what I need. It's harder for me to do that. So I'm working on that. Maybe that's self-confidence. I don't know. We'll have to see where that falls in. So imagine trying to operate a machine while sleeping, and you can't do that, right? And you can't sleepwalk through life, although many of us do. Then one day, when you choose to wake up or get shaken up and woken up by the universe, we become self-aware and we hope remain awake. And in the process, we realize that if we are to remain awake, we must also be honest with ourselves about who we are and how we show up and affect the world and the people in it, about the choices we make and have made, and about the reality of our lives, even if that means we don't always like what we see. So we do go into a section here where she wants us, again, with the mirror, to sit down and have a real conversation with yourself. There are probably some things that you know inside that you don't want to admit. Like, you could totally be honest. Maybe you would sit there and look in the mirror and say, I'm not happy in my marriage, or something like that. But the truth of it is, you're thinking about all the things like, well, how do I get out of it? And he doesn't know I feel this way. And what would the neighbors say, or the family, or what would our kids do? There's so many other things about it. But if you're really honest, you want out. So these conversations may not be easy, but maybe it's time to have one, because you might get to the root of where some negativity is coming in your life. And I just took that marriage one out of nowhere. I don't know. I'm not married or anything, but so yeah, one essential cornerstone of any great relationship is honesty. And your relationship with yourself is no different, she says. It's kind of crazy to think that we would go more than a day without having a constructive conversation with ourselves. Although most of us live that way for years before we realize how much we can actually help and guide ourselves if only we pause to ask ourselves what we need. And that's a lot like the self-care challenge for January, where Cheryl Richardson had us figure out, like, well, how are we feeling deprived, and how can we fix that with determining what our needs are and how we could somehow have those met. If you can't be honest and open with yourself, you can't expect others to be honest and open with you. What do you think about that? I don't know if I could say that. I don't know if I agree with that statement. I mean, I do believe in the law of attraction, so if you are being dishonest, then I suppose that you would attract other dishonesty around you. But it's just like that statement I hate when people say, if you don't love yourself, you can't love other people. And I don't agree with that, because I 100% or 1,000,000% know that I very much love other people. And I don't always love myself. It's something I really struggle with. If you can't be honest and open with yourself, you can't expect others to be honest and open with you. It's probably similar to what I said in the last video about people are going to love you as much as you allow them to. So maybe if people are going to be as honest with you as you allow them to be, I suppose that's true. If you tend to have a dishonest vibe, then they're probably going to be dishonest with you. I don't know. That's just one of her truth statements. She does say, where she said it was crazy that we wouldn't have a conversation with ourselves. It's even crazier to think that we would lie to the person who most needs us to be honest, ourselves. But we choose self-deceit, shame, and self-sabotage over self-love all the time. The truth can be scary, right? Well, yes, sometimes it is, but as the saying goes, the truth will set you free. What do you think about that? Do you think that's true? Because think about the marriage scenario that I just said, where it's like you want out of your marriage, but maybe you've never had that conversation with your spouse before. I suppose the truth would set you free in that situation. If you came out and said, like, I'm out of here, then you would be free. I don't know. Oh, then she goes into a really cool part of this section. And you know I love my birds, and you might have seen when I did my tours last year around my place that I have lots of peacocks around. So remember the story of the ugly duckling, where the ugly duckling just felt like they didn't belong. I don't know if it was a he or a she, so I'm saying they. They didn't belong in the family because they just didn't look like everybody else. And they just kept trying to fit in, and they never found where they fit in. Until one day, the ugly duckling saw its own reflection and realized that it was a swan. And it was something that they had never realized before. So she changes the story to be about a peacock. And now I'm forgetting what the other bird was. Well, I'm forgetting if there was if the peacock just didn't know that it had all the colors. I totally read this. I'm sorry. The details are escaping me at this moment. But I remember I liked the peacock part. But she uses one of her former clients as an example of this, where the woman, you know, she was around people that didn't appreciate that. Think about a peacock. They're so vibrant. They're very unique, right? So she was around people and she just felt that ugly duckling sort of feeling of thinking there was something wrong with her because she didn't fit in. But then she went to a seminar and she met all kinds of people that were all, you know, really vibrant and maybe not a peacock, but she just felt like she could be her full peacock self. And I think self-awareness and self-honesty is a lot about some of the things that we talked about last year in Simple Abundance, about that authentic self. Because when you can embrace that, you are being totally honest with yourself, and then you're showing that to the world. So you've become this peacock. But she does ask you to figure out what kind of bird you might be. I would probably choose a peacock. But I wonder if there's a bird that you like that comes to your yard. And she actually even says to try to identify what other kinds of birds might be in your life. I was talking to a friend of mine about the starlings that were coming to her feeder, and she was really excited because she saw her first one. And I was like, oh, just wait, because they all come together and they're going to eat all your food and stuff. But then we were talking about how beautiful they really are and how it's sad that people don't really like them because they come in groups. But so maybe people at work might be the starlings and you feel like they're just taking up all your time or resources or something. And then your mom is the cardinal and she's just beautiful, and although she's very territorial and you know, takes care of her young, and maybe there's the blue jays. I don't know. Just think about the various birds. I don't know. You might not be into birds like I am, but I liked that whole section about the duckling and the peacock, and then trying to figure out what kind of bird you might be and how you might fit in with other people. So when I think about my family, it's not necessarily in terms of birds, but I've had struggles feeling like I belong in my own family. Kind of maybe like the ugly duckling in some ways. Because sometimes you can be somebody that other people that have known you a long time don't see. So they might be seeing you, like, for example, and I'm not saying this is the situation in my family, but in some family dynamics, maybe people always see you as the young person who like couldn't get it together, or you know, always had to rely on other people, when really now that person is an adult, they're thriving, they have everything, but then there's this I mean, it can happen in any sort of circle where people get this idea of somebody and it's not even the true way. So you might actually be a peacock and people are treating you like you're the ugly duckling that they remembered from another time in life. I don't know, or they just got this idea of you. So it's important to really think about owning who you are and trying to, well, I can't say you're going to convince other people of who you are, but trying to emulate that. And whether other people see it or not, this section's about self-awareness. So if you see the beautiful swan or the peacock or whatever thing you want to say, you see your beautiful reflection, at some point, you're going to have so much self-respect that it won't matter, or you won't even be in situations where people can't see that you're a peacock. I was just going to say one thing about when I started to say something about my family and not fitting in. I actually had this sort of spiritual vision one time of a puzzle, like a puzzle piece, and that I was trying to fit into a puzzle. You know, I like puzzles, and I wasn't fitting. Like, I just don't even, I'm a different sort of shape. So I was like trying to fit into this family puzzle, and I just didn't fit. And I thought that was very symbolic. And I think it's about being self-aware. I mean, some people might not know that they don't fit. I don't know. Now I'm rambling, and it doesn't really go with that. But the whole ugly duckling peacock thing made me think about that vision that I had about the puzzle and not fitting. But maybe I can change that. And maybe some of this self-love is going to help bring more love and harmony into my family as well. So our daring act of love for this section is about having an honesty hearing for yourself, and that's with a friend. So really saying a bunch of things, like you're going to have open communication, you're going to request reflection from them, you're going to get curious to gain clarity, and you're going to be grateful, not defensive. You think you could do that? This would be to talk to somebody about your life. I think you have to choose wisely with that. You'd have to choose someone that you know is going to be able to handle it in a self-aware and delicate way. And obviously before, well, actually I should say that having the honesty hearing with your friend comes after you doing your own inner work. And she has there's 5 different steps, I think, here. Yeah. Stating the obvious, there's a whole bunch about that. Going deeper. Being grateful, not defensive, just like during the hearing. Soak in the truth and make a new choice. So in the make a new choice section, I'll just read the 3 things that she says. What has been the result or the cost of this lack of self-honesty and self-awareness that I've had? What reality would I like to create instead? And what is one action I can take to create the reality that I want this week? So it's similar to what we did with the love baths, where you're trying to figure out, why am I here reading this book? What do I want to change? Yeah, so it's some of the same things. All right, I already told you about the ugly duckling. And then when it's, again, with the bird analogy, the last daring act of love for this section is take your bird self out for a flight. And this is similar to something that Sarah Ban Breathnach's book, Simple Abundance, encouraged us to do. And it was to go out on creative excursions. And we talked a lot about that. So Christine has her own little version of that, but she wants you to do something sort of outside of your comfort zone. Like something that would be totally novel, that maybe might be different than you thought about doing. This might be to shop out of your price range or comfort zone. Might be a restaurant in a neighborhood with people who seem different from you. A spiritual center or event you've been curious about but too shy to swoop in. You can fly to a museum, a gallery, or music festival with people and art that may or may not be of your tribe. You won't know until you check it out. Make at least 3 trips to 3 different locations to have 3 completely different experiences. Challenge yourself to have judgment-free self-discovery experience where you try different energies on and see how they fit and don't fit. Take yourself to dinner afterwards and record in a journal what you learned about who you are and who you are not. Remember, there are no bad birds, only different birds. So this is about exploring more about who you are and having self-awareness of like, hey, I didn't really like that museum. Or, hey, I didn't think I was gonna like that music festival, but I do. And then there's some meat art about doing the I am and the I am not. two pieces of paper. I think you could do that in a multitude of ways, though. Like listing all the things, saying I am, and all these things. And then I am not. And again, when you're doing these little me art projects, this is the 3-year-old, she says. It's your 3-year-old on a play date to create a piece of this me art. Remember, your 3-year-old self creates this. You don't need to be Picasso or perfect in any way. Just be your little girl self before anyone told her how to do art the right way. You could use anything to do that sort of project. And the last thing is the love mantra from this section is love mantra for self-awareness and self-honesty. I deserve the truth. I am ready for the truth. I embrace the truth. I am my truth. I am myself. I wish you blessings on this joy ride of, or this crazy ride of self-awareness and self-honesty. I don't know if it's all roses, but at least you'll know. And I hope you have some fun. Maybe go out on one of those excursions and see what you like and what you don't like. Let me know what you think about the section and how you're enjoying the book so far. We are, look at that, we're getting close to halfway done with it. So there's been a lot to talk about, and I'm glad you're here as always. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.